This is BYU Sports Nation, brought to you by the BYU Store, simulcast on BYU TV and BYU Radio. Now, from Studio B, here's Spencer Linton and Jerem Jordan.
BYU Sports Nation is live on a Tuesday, wherever and however you're connected. Great to have you with us. I'm Spencer Linton alongside Jerem Jordan. We're always presented by the BYU Store, official outfitter of BYU fans everywhere. Hey, you're gathering your shoes for this week for Gideon George.
I'm so excited about this. Friday night, Gideon George. Finally, we're going to be able to do this officially, right? He's been donating shoes back to men in Nigeria, where he's from, which is so cool. He wore shoes from someone who donated them growing up. Now, Friday, before the San Diego State game, San Diego State in town Friday, massive game. That'll be awesome. You can bring shoes to the game, newer, lightly used shoes, also backpacks or used computers to be donated to Nigeria. So that's Friday at the Marriott Center, okay? I'm sure we can figure out ways if you can't make it to the game and you still want to donate. We'll figure that out, right? Reach out to me, Spence. We'll figure that out, how to get it to him. But this is Friday, and it's going to be great. What a great cause to, the future Gideon Georges of the world getting some shoes or backpacks or used computers.
So it's expanded beyond just shoes.
Yeah, it's not just shoes, yeah.
What an incredible effort by Gideon George. Again, you can bring them Friday night, huge basketball matchup. Speaking of, today's show lineup, basketball-centric, because it's the basketball season opener for the regular season.
Yeah, baby.
All of our season projections coming up. Plus, we're not forgetting about BYU football on selection, well, at least the poll Tuesday when the college football playoff projections are released. Isaiah Cafusi and Keanu Hill will join us, and it's tournament time for BYU women's soccer. They got a seed.
Way better than I thought. That's awesome.
Bring on today's BYU Sports Nation headlines.
It's a ball night. First one of the season in the Marriott Center tonight. Women's hoops tips off the season versus Lipscomb. 6 Eastern on the BYU TV app. Then the men play Horizon League champs Cleveland State. 10 Eastern, an hour later than normal. Which brings us to the stat of the day.
It's the BYU Sports Nation stat of the day.
BYU and Cleveland State is one of 5 games on this opening night of NCAA hoops, featuring 2 teams that were in the NCAA tournament last year.
All right.
Horizon League champs for Cleveland State.
Don't we have a Horizon League championship T-shirt from somebody?
We do, Valparaiso.
But they're no longer in the Horizon League?
Are they not? Did they move? I don't know where they went. Are they still there? By the way, Tijon Lucas has played like 5 games against Cleveland State.
Okay.
He was in the Horizon League with Milwaukee.
He's got the scouting report.
Tijon Lucas went for like 31 in a game against Cleveland State. So, FYI. Coverage begins with countdown to tip-off, 9:30 Eastern. Same time as BYU Radio's Cougar pregame live as well. And then, of course, the game after.
How about a brand new bracketology from Joe Lunardi just in time for the season opener? BYU 7th to last in, and one of the last 4 teams to receive a bye. They are currently a 10 seed, taking on USC. BYU 40th overall out of 358 Division I teams. No surprises, the Zags, the number 1 overall seed. They've got 3 top 20 NBA prospects. St. Mary's also win the WCC, a 3-team or 3-bid league, with the Gales coming in as an 11 seed.
Valparaiso is in the Missouri Valley now, by the way. Football has a bye week after 10 straight weeks of games. BYU's number 14 in the AP poll. We'll see what the Cougars are in tonight's second college football playoff ranking. Also, Jaren Hall is the Independent Offensive Player of the Week by College Sports Madness after having a tremendous first half against Idaho State. I cannot wait to not announce Independent Offensive Players of the Week.
So something from the Big 12.
I've been done with that for years.
We're getting Big 12 emails, and it's just nice to get those, right?
It's nice.
Even though BYU is not technically involved right now. BYU women's volleyball moves up a spot, or rather, the number 4 seed in the women's soccer tournament. Hey, Jerem, they're gearing up for a home game against New Mexico of all teams. There's some history there. I don't know if we'll show that, but there's some history there.
On the mountain. I was in the truck working the bug on there.
Cameron Tucker won the West Coast Conference Offensive Player of the Week award. Cassidy Smith, your Defensive Player of the Week for an outstanding effort in front of the net.
Women's volleyball moves up spots, number 5 in the AVCA poll. The Cougars' highest of the season, and since 2018 when BYU got as high as number 1. Cougars host Pepperdine Thursday on the BYU TV app, 9 Eastern time. That's a big game. Pepperdine has been in and out of the top 25 all year.
And finally, BYU men's golf teeing off on the first round yesterday at the St. Mary's Invitational, tied for 12th place at 2 over par. Carson Lundell, Cole Ponich both shot 1 under par, with Tyson Shelley shooting even par. Second round just getting underway. All rise and shout. It's time for What's Trending.
You're talking about it, and so are we. It's What's Trending on BYU Sports Nation.
What's Trending, presented by Byu Food To Go, the MVP of your next event. It is time we make our 2021-2022 season basketball projections, Jerem, led off by who's going to get the most buckets for BYU basketball.
So points per game, we're saying. Alex Barcelo, last year he was 16.1. I think he goes up to 17.3 this year. A little more, second senior year, fifth year in college hoops. I think Tijon Lucas will find him a little more than Brandon Averett did. And, 17.3, man.
Okay. I also like Alex Barcelo. And
I like him, too.
Truth be told, I did not see what you had projected. I went with 17.7.
Nice.
So a little bit over that.
Nice.
But
two white dudes from Utah thinking the same. Yeah. Okay, who will be the Cougars' leading rebounder?
Caleb Lohner's going to be the guy.
Amen.
He'll have several occasions where he's in double figures rebounding. I said 8.5 a game.
I go 7.9. Yeah, we're along the same lines.
Mine's probably a little bit aggressive there.
He should be, no, I think that's good. I think it's good. We're only 0.6 difference. He's the best rebounder on the team. And, you know, we're still waiting to see, like, hey, is Richard Harward, like, is he good
okay?
after last Thursday, the exhibition? Hopefully he is, but no one rebounds better than Caleb Lohner. How would that sound from Bill Walton again?
There has never been a greater rebounder in the history of college basketball in the state of Utah than one Caleb Lohner.
And Tom Chambers. Yeah.
All right. From rebounding and points per game to three-point shots. 3YU was a thing at BYU a couple of years ago.
Yeah, led the nation, man.
Who's going to lead the team in three-point makes?
I think the Russian Alexei Barcelo will do it.
It's hard to go away from Alex.
It is. I'm going to go 59. I increased his number from 53 makes from last year. BYU's going to play a handful more games, right? They had 2 weeks delayed because of COVID last year for no good reason. They could have played if they wanted. 59.
I think he'll make a few more. Same ideology based on the fact that BYU is not going to have to miss games because of COVID-19. We hope not, anyway. Right, that they will play the entirety of the schedule.
We're good.
And I see Alex making between 2 and 3 a game, so I went with 65 overall.
Nice.
65 makes.
Okay. Who will lead the team in three-point percentage? We finally have a different person on this one. I went off the board a little bit here. Who did you have?
Alex. 46%, which is really high, but he's been so good.
Yeah.
He's been shooting like 50% from the three-point line.
Last year was 47.7. Okay. So you think he's going to have a down year. Crazy. Just kidding. Trevin Nell, and I go right at 45, which is what he was last year. He was 45.3. I don't think people realize Trevin Nell shot 45% from three last year.
45%?
I mean, dude needs to shoot more. That's what I say. Well, he shot his shot in the offseason, got married. And here we are.
You say you went off the board? Hey, listen.
Off the board meaning not Alex.
Yeah.
That's what I mean by that.
Trevin might shoot 50% from the three-point line this year. His coaches think that he's fully capable of doing that. Yeah. All right, one of our favorite categories. Who's going to lead this BYU basketball team in fouls?
Listen, this is going to be awesome. Last year it was Caleb Lohner. I'm going to stick with that. Caleb Lohner is going to have 67 fouls this year.
Fantastic. I'm going with our boy, Richard Harward.
That's a good guess.
He's okay. Richard Harward,
more
71
PT.
fouls for Richard Harward.
More PT. Yeah, who will lead in disqualifications? Meaning you foul out. You know, probably one of those.
The Nate Austin Award.
The Nate Austin Award, right.
Yep.
What will BYU's final regular season record be? This is the question of the question of questions is NCAA tournament.
Okay.
But what's the record going to be in 31 games?
25-6.
25-6 is nice,
let me get my blue goggles out, right?
Do you think that's blue goggled?
Well, maybe.
Tell me the losses right now on the schedule.
So maybe Oregon, right?
I think if you had to pencil in losses, San Diego State is a question mark.
At Utah's tough.
Tough, but that's going to be a win.
That's a win, right?
Creighton, I would if I had to pencil in losses, maybe Creighton,
Dakota,
right?
Yeah, Creighton, yep.
Maybe one at the Diamond Head. Okay, there's what, 3 or 4?
There are 3 in the non-con.
And then in league, you just pencil in Gonzaga. If you win that, that's amazing, right?
Right.
If you win that, that's amazing. So there's your 6, right?
Yes, and I think that's because Ken Palm says BYU is going to win 20 or 21 games because he has San Francisco so high in the ratings.
San Francisco's so great. What has San Francisco done besides Bill Russell?
How many times have we seen this from San Francisco?
Yeah.
Like, oh, they're really good. They might
What
be
are
the
they
second
going to
best
do?
team in the West Coast Conference.
They haven't made the NCAA tournament since '98, Kenneth. They don't even make the NIT.
25-6.
Come on, man.
This BYU team is fully capable of only losing 2 games in the non-conference and then 4 in conference if they lose 3 non-con.
4 in conference?
Yeah.
Whoa. If they go 2 losses non-con but 4 in conference, something bad happened.
You think?
Yes. Because to me, yeah.
There's always a
St.
weird
Mary's
game
is the
at
question.
Pepperdine, at
There
San
wasn't last year.
Francisco.
Under Mark Pope,
They lost at Pepperdine.
Pepperdine was 112. That was a quad
so
2.
That doesn't qualify as a weird loss.
Weird to me is quad 3-4.
Okay.
Or I could see the argument from Cougar fans saying anything but St. Mary's Gonzaga is a weird loss. I would argue no. There's one allowed a year where it's weird, meaning it's one of those other teams. Like if BYU loses a quad 3 or 4, that's terrible.
Yeah,
that means Pepperdine at home. That means Portland anytime.
Okay.
Right? Like that's bad.
So. Yeah,
the committee didn't look at Pepperdine as a weird loss or bad loss.
So maybe what if BYU loses at San Francisco? That's not a bad loss. And then they lose to St. Mary's once and lose to Gonzaga twice. There are 4 conference losses.
There are 4. But if they went 2 non-con losses only, that's pretty good.
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
BYU would be 13-2 and probably like 22nd in the country.
I feel like this team's loaded. I feel like they are loaded.
I feel like they're similar to last year, and I have questions. Like, is Tijon Lucas going to be better than Brandon Averett? I think he will be. Will the combination of Richard Harward and Gavin Baxter be better than Matt Harms? Okay. I'm not sure yet. Like, I need to see that part. That's my biggest question mark is because the moment Richard Harward went out, that was trouble for BYU. BYU was not deep at that particular position on the court.
Okay.
I say 24-7. I just have one more loss there. I'm thinking 11-4 non-con, 13-3 conference. That's what
all right. Yeah, and I essentially said 12-3 in non-con and 13-3 in conference. Right?
Yeah.
Hey, let's go, man. Let's go. Let's get it done. How many St. Zaga wins will be involved in BYU's either 24 overall or, if you're me, 25 total wins?
Well, we're including the WCC tournament in this projection. Okay, for those new to the program, welcome, first off. Mm-hmm. All visitors, welcome. We call St. Mary's and Gonzaga St. Zaga. We've just combined the names. We don't like saying 3 words. We only like saying 2. So I say 3. I think BYU gets St. Mary's twice, and then probably St. Mary's again in the WCC tournament.
Maybe Gonzaga once.
I would love to have one Gonzaga in there somewhere. I don't expect it. When it happens, it's a awesome surprise.
Maybe Gonzaga once. Okay. Next question.
What did you think?
I'm going to 3. Exactly the same.
Okay.
Yeah, whether it's a combination of 2 against St. Mary's and 1 against Gonzaga. Maybe so what my thinking was, okay, BYU gets St. Mary's at least once in the regular season. They face them again in the tournament in that 2-3 game. And then BYU gets another shot at Gonzaga in the West Coast Conference title game.
Yeah.
Okay, so 3 total. All right, how many non-St. Zaga losses will BYU suffer?
In WCC
in
play? 1. Just one other one. San Fran, Pep. I don't know. Not going to be Pep. Pep's not as good.
Yeah. See,
Pep lost 2. So Colby Ross and Kessler Edwards are gone.
So the more that I think about this, I put down 2, but I don't know that BYU can afford 2 non-St. Zaga losses if they want to go 25-6.
Right? I bet it's 1.
But typically, other than last year, BYU has had a couple of these losses every season.
Did they win 2 years ago? I don't think they did, right? I think they came away pretty unscathed 2 years ago.
Okay.
I think under Mark Pope, things are different. I do.
It's not the same. So
I don't
maybe
think it's
1.
The same.
So have we
I think
1.
I think
1 is fair?
1. I know Cougar fans don't want a single. No, we're better than everybody. 1 basketball game. 1 basketball game. You play 3 times as many as football. Okay. 1 weird loss.
Okay, you've convinced me. The Mark Pope effect. I'm going to amend that.
1.
I'm going to amend it. Okay, 1 non-Saint Zaga
that's
loss.
A draw.
Okay?
We just delete that question. It's over.
If they have 2, I'm going to be really mad.
You'd be like, I knew they'd lose another one.
All right, Jerem, on to the net ranking.
Yeah.
Which is like 17 million times better than the RPI.
I feel bad for all the other sports that have to deal with RPI still.
What will BYU's best win be by net ranking?
I go 23. Last year was 18, by the way, San Diego State. That was a great win on the road. I'll go 23. I'm not sure who. I'm not sure when. Yeah, maybe it's St. Mary's who has a great year. Maybe it's Creighton or something. Oregon.
Sure. For no rhyme or reason other than I love the number 21, I went with 21.
Now, if one of us had said 1, that would have meant we thought they'd be a Gonzaga.
Should one of us be that
Just
brash?
say
Should we
one?
throw on the blue goggles and put down number 1?
Listen, I'm in the. If BYU does that, I'll be so happy. I'm not going to expect it per se, but if it happens, it'll be great. Okay. What will be BYU's worst net ranking loss?
100 even. And
Okay.
I think it's probably going to be whoever the non-St. Zaga, well, maybe not. See, San Francisco, we'll see what they are. Maybe San Francisco's not as great as everybody thinks they are, and they drop down to like in the 90s. Or maybe it's LMU. We'll see.
I say 120. The worst was 110 to Pepperdine last year.
Okay, highest ranking in the AP poll during the season.
21.
I love that. I'm going with 23.
Okay. And NCAA tourney seed?
6 seed.
Okay.
Third year in a row.
I'd say 7.
Third year in a row. They're 25 and 6. They should be a 6 seed.
Depends what the wins are. And the losses, right?
Maybe I should change my best win by net ranking to number 1, and then they'll be a 6 seed.
Then there might be a 5. Yeah.
Our question of the day: which team will end the season ranked higher, BYU basketball or BYU football?
Oh, shoot.
Okay. Let's hear from you, BYUSN and Voice of the Nation.
This is the Voice of the Nation on BYU Sports
At
Nation.
@Pask_PaskBYU on Twitter says football, not only because they have a legitimate chance at winning out, but because in basketball, there are nearly 3 times as many schools, and it's harder to get into the top 15, #BYUSN.
Yeah. No, it's a great point. I think it's going to be hard to beat what football is doing.
Unless football loses to USC and then loses a bowl game, which would be, brutal.
Yeah, finished ranked. True. Coming up, have we seen Neil Pau in a BYU jersey for the last time?
And former BYU linebacker Isaiah Cafusi joins us. What advice does he give the team as they try and run the table and crack into the New Year's Six? This is BYU Sports Nation.
Yeah.
This portion of BYU Sports Nation is presented by Byu Food To Go, the MVP of your next event.
Welcome to a partnership where customer experience comes first. It's our focus. It's your expectation. We provide support to those that go the extra mile for all of us. Supplying products, training, and service for generations. Learn more at bradyindustries.com.
Byu Food To Go's convenient location at 2191 North Canyon Road in Provo makes bringing popular BYU foods to your next event easy. Everything's ready when you need it at the drive and load pickup. You drive in and they load no matter the weather. And stop in the on-site creamery for great BYU chocolate milk and ice cream. Byu Food To Go, bringing campus to your table. Call for details, 801-422-5001.
Tim Daly Ford in Spanish Fork offers a large inventory of Ford vehicles, including a selection of cars and trucks, providing a range of transportation choices. From the Ford Fusion sedan and the Edge crossover SUV to a range of pickups including the F-150. Each product line comes with options to enhance performance, comfort, and safety. Think Ford, think Tim Daly Ford in Spanish Fork.
Let's kick off AFR on BYU TV.
What they did in that fourth quarter was not unexpected in my book.
Everyone did their job perfectly, and it resulted in, obviously, a touchdown.
Who knew that he had these kind of hands?
And right at the snap of the football, they both go right downhill. And that was the end of that. He knocked him down pretty quickly.
BYU Sports Nation is presented by the BYU Store, official outfitter of BYU fans everywhere.
Kalani Sitake leading the band. Cougar fight song after the game. If one coach is good, 2 is better, by the way. Watch last night's combo coaches show. Kalani Sitake, Mark Pope on the BYU TV app on demand. It was a great show.
That was fantastic. And one of the BYU viral moments was Mark Pope talking about Kalani Sitake and the reason he's so successful and the love that his players feel for him. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah. Gideon George was on. Kyle Griffiths and his newly shorn head was on. It was great.
All right, we're hanging out live in Studio B with your day-to-day BYU sports play-by-play alongside Jerem Jordan. I'm Spencer Linton. It is our pleasure now to welcome in former BYU linebacker great Isaiah Cafusi. Let's talk some football, Isaiah. I mean, assuming you want to, with the Cougars ranked number 14 in the AP poll, we're waiting to see what they're in the college football playoff poll, but you cool if we talk football?
Hey, let's do it, man. I love it. I love talking football.
Okay, just a season removed for you from your BYU career, but you're watching BYU football get back to where you were last year, in the middle of the college football playoff poll. What has impressed you most about this team that makes them maybe different than the team you were on last year?
I just think it's just the guys stepping up. You know, a lot of voids coming out, you know, this year, and a lot of question marks, I think, around how guys were going to respond. So I just think the biggest thing is just the guys that have stepped up, the leadership, and just people, you know, stepping up into roles that I think, you know, maybe are pushing it, you know, getting out of their comfort zone, and just really excited for the guys, really proud of the guys, what they've done so far.
Defensively, let's look at that end because that's where you played. BYU has been better than I think people think. Some people get frustrated over certain things. Obviously, you know, gave up 49 to Virginia. Second half was amazing against Power 5 teams outside of Virginia. It was like giving up like 21 a game. What have been your thoughts about the defense so far this season?
Yeah, really proud of the defense. I think they've really stepped up. I know a lot of people aren't big fans of some of the schemes that we run, but I'm a big fan. The drop 8, I think, was what won us the game against Virginia. Big fan of the drop 8 when it's used and you know, correctly. I think the fans don't necessarily like it as much, but I think it does. You know, it does have its time and a place, and I think, you know, obviously it creates turnovers, and 2 forced turnovers in the end of that game was key. So really proud of the defense though and what they're doing. You know, I think a lot of guys have stepped up, and there's some names up there that people probably don't really recognize as much, but a lot of them are stepping up. So it's really fun to see them.
Yeah, let's not overlook the fact that BYU is without Keenan Peely, and on the outside in the secondary without Keenan Ellis. I mean, those are 2 massive injuries early in the season. Focusing on Keenan Peely specifically at the linebacker position, what does a player like Keenan Peely mean to this BYU team, and then to have the team rally around the fact that he's not there?
Yeah, I think he's a really solid component of the defense, and he just brings that energy, the leadership. He's a fighter. He will fight to the end. He gives everything he's got. He lays his body on the line, as we have seen. And so I think, you know, missing him has been, you know, he is a missing piece, and it's been felt. His presence has been, you know, has been felt. But I think, you know, a lot of guys have just stepped up. Guys, you know, that's kind of how we roll in the BYU defense. It's the next man up mentality. The coaches do a great job at, you know, helping guys kind of step into those roles, and you know, really just proud of the guys that have stepped up in Keenan's absence. I think, you know, obviously it is felt, but just really proud of the guys for stepping up.
It's not bad when you have a walk-on middle linebacker like Ben Bywater doing work. He's been tremendous in the middle there, making plays. On Friday, getting ready for the game broadcast, we talked to some of the coaches, and Elisa Tuiake, I asked him about kind of these line changes, almost like hockey, right? You're having like the whole D-line and the whole linebackers coming in. It's kind of unique. He said he started that at Utah. Then I asked him kind of what the motivation is there, and he said that he would rather have a backup at 100% if the starter's at 80% in terms of fatigue. Can you kind of walk us through what it was like as a player to manage that? Because at first you kind of want continuity, but then you realize, well, logistically, you have a fresh body out there.
Yeah, I definitely think that that's something that's sort of unique to BYU, is kind of those line changes. And as a player, you know, sometimes it can be frustrating because you want to get into a groove, but then, you know, as I matured, I realized that the backups are just as prepared and just as capable and able as the starters. And so, you know, it takes some humbling, and just kind of, that's kind of the buy-in part is you've got to be able to trust people and trust your backups and trust the guys rotating in, that they're going to play hard and that they deserve, you know, an opportunity and a shot. that they're going to make plays too. So I think we've proved that, the backups can make plays. We saw Drew Jensen in there, snagging a pick and getting his hands on the ball, which is awesome. And so definitely I'm a fan of kind of, letting guys get in and fresh bodies get in to make some plays.
And then going into the Big 12, obviously, Kalani Sitake said when he started here, he saw the Power 5 stacked up at the beginning and thought, oh, I can't just start these 11 guys and have them in Game 12. It's just not going to happen. They're going to get injured a little more than, say, the previous schedules that maybe BYU had played. So going into the Big 12, BYU probably needs 3 deep. Kalani Sitake told Dave McCann 2 weeks ago, hey, I need 123 starters. So what kind of depth is reasonable to think and expect that BYU can get going into the Big 12?
Yeah, I agree with Kalani. I think, you got to have 2 or 3 guys ready to go. And Kalani, he's all business. So if a guy's not playing well and someone's hot, then he'll put him in, and he doesn't care if you're a walk-on, if you're a transfer or where you're from. If you can come in and produce and make plays and do your job, I think he's proven that you'll get on the field. So I definitely do think going into the Big 12, there's going to be a lot of changes. Speed and physicality are a big part of that conference. And so I think, we're going to need to get 123 guys who are going to be able to play special teams, offense, defense, all 3 phases need to be ready to go.
Isaiah Cafusi, former BYU linebacker, is with us on BYU Sports Nation. Just a season ago, you lived the life in the college football playoff poll. BYU entered at number 14. You were undefeated. The spotlight was really bright, and here we are again. BYU number 15 right now. We'll see where they are tonight. But how much do the players, now that you're graduated and that you've moved on, you can let down the wall, you can tell us, how much do the players really pay attention to the rankings?
I wouldn't say it's everything. Obviously, we do pay attention, and, the last few years, I guess, we've been kind of in the limelight. And so it's been nice to, something that we haven't really been used to is being ranked and being talked about. And so I definitely think that's something that is fun for the players to think about. We're ranked and we're getting all this attention. And so, but I don't necessarily think that that's all that the players are talking about. We have goals and the players have goals and the team has goals, and so I think, there's other conversations around those goals. And so it's definitely fun though, to be ranked and to, just be talked about. I mean, analysts and people are really talking highly about BYU. And so it's always fun to see that and see us, the recognition and the hard work that we've put in, be recognized. I think that's nice.
Have you thought about what it would have been like to play on this team, or are you content with your life?
That's a great question. I'm content. I'm very content. I'm really happy with where I'm at, and obviously, miss it and miss football and miss the guys and the coaches and just the staff. But I've made the decision, and I'm really happy with where I'm at. I've got a beautiful wife and a loving son that keep me busy. And, I've done the best up to this point. I've given it my all, done everything that I could have, laid it all out there. And, I feel good with where I'm at.
What's next for you in your football career or your professional career for that matter?
Yeah, great question. I still kind of just training and staying ready, had a great preseason. And so got some good film out there and just, staying ready. But, I know that Kalani's always trying to recruit me to come coach, and would definitely love to look into that, and definitely would be a passion of mine. And so, we'll see. I don't know. We're just kind of taking it day by day, and I'm just enjoying some family time for now.
I remember one game you coached. Do you remember that game?
Oh, my goodness. He's bringing it up again, Isaiah.
Hey, you know what? That was a great run. But, I still am mad about that.
I know you are, dude. When you look at me, I'm like, he's still thinking about it. Shoot. And I keep bringing it up. Yeah.
Jaron breaks Isaiah's flag football dreams.
Hail Mary. Hail Mary
we were the underdogs, though. We were underdogs. I mean, the fact that we made it to the championship game
makes yourself feel better.
That was fun.
Yep.
It was good.
No one talks about Hail Mary defense. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Isaiah.
Hey, kudos to you. That was a heads-up play.
I pulled the flag like a foot short. Would be Hail Mary win for Isaiah's coach team. It just I got lucky. You know what? I was well coached. We prepared well. We'd gone over that week.
I love it. And now you got Jerem and athletes speak. Isaiah, it's great to talk with you, man. We wish you the best and whatever your endeavors include. If that's coaching football, BYU.
Yeah, come back, dude. We'd still hang out. It'd be great.
Playing in the NFL, that's cool too. But we appreciate your time regardless.
Hey, I appreciate you guys having me on. It's always good to come back, talk to you guys, and talk football.
You bet. Isaiah Cafusi, former BYU linebacker, with us on BYU Sports Nation.
He's going to overcome that moment, right? Like, he's still dwelling on it a little bit when I bring it up. But, like, I think he'll overcome that. I really do. I would love to – I'm kidding. I would love to –
monkey off his back when he's coaching his son's flag football team.
Yes. He's like, oh, my gosh. I would love to have him as a GA here. Oh, that'd be great.
Coach Cafusi.
Can we please do that?
Coach Isaiah Cafusi.
I'd love that.
Did that not just resonate with you when he said that?
Yeah,
I mean, like
it did.
I was like, ooh.
I was like, oh, nice.
Yep.
Coming up, Keanu Hill on why he knew he was blocking that punt on Saturday.
And what mood will BYU fans, specifically football, be in tonight before the basketball game? Ooh. Here's looking at you, College Football Playoff Committee.
Gary.
This is BYU Sports Nation.
Gary, you dog.
My name is Spencer Finnegan. I'm from St. Louis, Missouri. During my sophomore year, I got married to my sweetheart, Mary, and there's tons of unexpected expenses when it comes to marriage. We were looking for scholarships. I found the replenishment grant, and my local alumni chapter gave me a grant to help me focus in on school. I'm so excited to, now that I've graduated, give back to those students that are coming to BYU in the future.
Familiar with the BYU TV app? Yes.
I beg your pardon?
Sure, it's got great original TV shows. But it also gives you access to family films for free.
Wow. Awesome!
So gather around, grab some popcorn, and let us do the rest.
It'll be fun.
Watch some of your favorite films anytime, anywhere. With the free BYU TV app.
I like it.
This portion of BYU Sports Nation is presented by Visible Supply Chain Management.
The ball night for men's basketball. The Cougars take on Horizon League champs Cleveland State. Tonight, watch or listen to pregame coverage on BYU Radio, BYU TV at 9:30 Eastern. And then that's an hour later, by the way, than normal, because women's hoops, doubleheader, let's go. Game is at 10 Eastern time.
He is Jerem Jordan. I'm Spencer Linton. This is BYU Sports Nation. To interact with the show and get whatever content you want from our 5 social media platforms, you know where to find it. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. It's all there. Let's whip it! Cougar Whip Around presented by Visible Supply Chain Management, tackling America's most challenging shipping problems.
Kalanai Sitake says Neil Pau is highly doubtful for the Georgia Southern game next week. Have we seen Neil Pau for the final time as a BYU Cougar?
Unless BYU is playing in a bowl game in late December, then probably, which hurts my soul.
Yeah, it hurt his foot and ankle too. Oh. Yeah, which is a real bummer. Yeah, Neil Pau is hurt. Hopefully he gets back, as soon as humanly possible, because Neil is a good player, and hopefully he comes back next year. But if not, Neil was a tremendous receiver at BYU.
Yeah, it hurts to think that, was that the last time we would see Neil Powell play for BYU?
Yeah, and he has a tremendous story, kind of being the, second or third wheel there many times, but playing like the number one receiver. And then when the Pukas got healthy, what a tandem we have seen with Romney and the Nakuas and Keanu Hills emerging, which is great.
All right, Jerem, speaking of more football, will BYU fans be happy or angry following the college football playoff poll reveal tonight?
Hopefully happy. I don't think it'll be worse than 15 from last week.
No.
I think it probably like 14 maybe.
Yeah, in fact, so many teams above BYU lost, and 2 teams just behind BYU lost. So I only see BYU with the ability to move up, but it's just going to be one spot.
Yeah.
So 14, which I think you should be. Come on. 14 with 2 losses in the college football playoff
BYU's
poll.
in the top 15. I'm mad.
They're jumping up. If they jump up a spot, they should be very happy. If they stay the same at 15, I could see some disgruntled fans, but they're going to jump up, I think.
They'll be disgruntled. Who will be BYU men's hoops' second leading scorer tonight?
Oh, man.
We're kind of assuming Alex Barcelo is going to lead the Cougs
he's going to be the guy.
almost every game.
Right? Yeah, we just gave you our projections. He's going to be the leading scorer, points per game. He's going to make a ton of threes.
I think the second choice is pretty obvious, too. I'm interested. T-John Lucas.
You think it's T-John?
Yeah.
Just sheer number of minutes played, and he's super efficient.
Remember, he knows Cleveland State. He was in the same league the last 2 years. He knows these guys. He scored 31 in a game against the Vikings last year.
So I'm going to go off the reservation here. All right? I'm going to say Caleb Lohner.
Oh, okay.
Tonight.
Caleb's going to score a little bit.
Caleb, because he's been shooting a lot. He hasn't shot well in the blue and white game and in the exhibition.
He doesn't shoot well to start years. Like, he shot 43% after starting 0-13 last
He'll turn a corner tonight. Caleb Lohner, second leading scorer. Okay. Which BYU volleyball, with BYU volleyball, now ranked number 5. Is this now the high point for that team, or does it get better?
I wonder if one of the 4 lose the next 2 weeks. There's only 3 games left for BYU. Maybe. I think BYU has crept the last 2 or 3 weeks, 1 spot each week. I think maybe BYU goes up 1 more.
I don't see BYU getting above number 4, but that would be amazing to be top 4.
RPI is 23, so I'm really interested to see what seed BYU.
How do you handle that? How do you balance the ranking?
Ranking has no merit.
Because BYU women's soccer was in the same predicament.
Yes.
Lower RPI, but number 12 in the ranking.
Ranking has nothing to do with the NCAA tournament seeding.
What seed would you give BYU right now if you were on that committee?
Like 10.
Okay.
Yeah.
10th overall?
Because I have to, reward the teams that play at a certain strength of schedule. BYU had its schedule locked in before they got Kerber. That's why this happened. And BYU's one loss, they didn't have Taylor Ballard-Nixon.
Yeah. It would be fantastic if BYU could be top 8, because then they're hosting multiple home games, right?
Now we're talking about the Final Four for real.
Like an 8. Just give me the 8 seed.
I think BYU's Elite 8 good, maybe Final Four good. I think they're very good.
Okay.
Are you pulling your hair out in anticipation of the BYU New Mexico first round NCAA soccer match? We had to go there. Come on.
I am not pulling my hair out.
I'll pull it.
Frankly, it won't grow back if I do, Jerem. I like the matchup, but I kind of don't like that. That's where my mind went immediately when I heard.
No, of course it does.
Like
Elizabeth Lambert, she later did Locks of Love. She apologized. She did everything. I want to make that very clear.
Yeah.
Yes, that was a cheap shot right out of the gate. But yeah, I was in the truck with the Mountain doing the bug, which the bug is the scoreboard, right? Or Fox Box, because Fox did it first. Doing that in soccer is very easy. Goal. Yellow card.
And you get paid all the same.
Yeah, very, very easy.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
I like the matchup. It just was like, man, I hope that doesn't steal the storyline, right? That moment.
It's not the whole story. No.
Okay.
Just a story.
Jerem, when you go shopping, are you the type of guy who gets and keeps receipts?
I do initially. They pile up, and then later I throw them away because I'm like, I'm not taking this back. But yeah, if you know, you know.
Yeah, I used to keep every receipt. Now I don't do that anymore.
Yeah. A receipt hoarder.
Right to the shredder.
On HGTV.
Right to the shredder.
Or you just say no thanks. Digital. Coming up, top 5 wins of the football season. Where does Utah State rank in connection with Washington State?
Okay. And Keanu Hill, BYU receiver, scored 2 touchdowns, 1 on a punt block.
Receiver? You mean punt blocker?
My bad. Special team superstar.
Yeah, baby.
Keanu Hill joins us next to talk about that pump block touchdown and shaving his coach's head. This is BYU Sports Nation.
He's doing three things then.
If I got hurt and was laid up at home, I wouldn't even think to call a lawyer. What a hassle. I'd want to meet them first.
What if I told you that for your first consultation, your lawyer will come to you, home or hospital?
Really?
Really.
They do that?
If you've been injured, we'll come to you. It's your job to get better. It's our job to deal with the insurance companies.
Learn more at siegfriedandjensen.com.
Hi, Spencer Linton here, letting you know when your company joins the BYU team as a corporate partner, your brand can be featured in sports programming on BYU TV and BYU Radio. In addition to all of the great games, you can be part of the BYU coaches shows, place your message in Countdown to Kickoff, basketball pre- and post-game shows, and each weekday on BYU Sports Nation. We invite your team to join ours and become a corporate sponsor of BYU Athletics. For details, email sponsorship@byu.edu today.
I don't know why terrible things happen to us sometimes, but I have to believe that something good is gonna come out of this.
BYU Sports Nation is presented by the BYU Store, official outfitter of BYU fans everywhere.
What if I told you BYU women's basketball went to the NCAA tournament, won a game last year, and returns to top 6 scores? That team is going to be awesome, and they open the season tonight against the Bisons of Lipscomb, 6 Eastern on the BYU TV app. Check it out.
Love it. It's a Super Tuesday.
It is.
BYU basketball.
McCann.
Super Tuesday. Welcome back to BYU Sports Nation. I feel like we've got a super show going, and it features now my recent one-on-one conversation with one of the stars from Saturday's game.
He's going to win that matchup one-on-one, I'm telling you.
They call him Kibo, Keanu Hill. We're talking about the pump block touchdown and then shaving his coach's head, among other things. Here's BYU Sports Nation All Access with Keanu Hill. Keanu, you scored twice last Saturday against Idaho State. The second ignited the crowd. It was late in the game, punt block for a touchdown. Let's walk through that play, your perspective. What did you see and how did it happen?
What I saw is like every time I got in, the end would kind of scoot out a little bit towards me, and they kind of, and on the last punt return that they did like an over where the receiver came over, and I acted like I was gonna jam him up, but then I kind of came off from last second, so he didn't scoot out, so I had like that space, so I can go take the ball off the punter's foot.
At what point did you know I'm going to block this?
Right after I passed the shield up and they didn't get towards me, and I was like, oh yeah, I'm for sure getting this block punt now.
And then the scramble is on. Yeah, the scramble's on to find the ball. Like, it's one thing to block it, but to recover it as well. Like, not many people can pull that off.
Yeah, my boy Mason, number 22, he was like trying to fight me for the ball as soon as we jumped on it, man. He was just like saying, like, hey, you already got a touchdown, man. Let me get one too, bro. But it was much fun afterward with everybody on the sideline now.
Now, you sprint over to the sideline and very quickly point out that there has been a deal made between you and Kyle Griffiths about shaving his head. So what went into that? When did that happen pregame when he made that deal?
He made that deal actually preparing for this week, man. He actually had a lot of confidence in us, and he already knew that we were going to come away with either a return back to the house or a block punt. But he didn't know he was going to get both of them in one play. So But yeah, it was either way. We got the best of both worlds. So as soon as I got up off the ground, the touchdown, I was like, yep, confident, get his head shaved off today.
The video is hilarious. There are a few things I want to point out specifically. The first is Kyle's in camo gear, so a shaved head kind of looked like it fit, right?
It fitted perfectly with him too, man. Looked like he was coming straight from the Army, man. Looked like he just came out of boot camp, man, with his mustache too with there. So
yes, Drill Sergeant Griffiths on the BYU football coaching staff. Then there's Mason Wake, who's just hammering a maple bar donut, the Cougar Tail, in the back. What's going on with Mason Wake?
That's a big man, man. He got to eat. He got to eat, especially after a big game like that, bro. It's my boy.
Oh, so much fun. BYU's 8-2 now. You're number 15 in the college football playoff poll, 15th in the coaches poll, 14th in the AP rankings. During a bye week, it's probably a little more understandable to let some of that national rhetoric sneak in. So where do you stand on that, and how much you pay attention to that stuff, especially during a bye week?
Just to not get too comfortable, I would say, make sure we're staying right, getting our bodies right for the next game. And we're really looking forward to the next game too. Even though we have this bye week, we're not going to let it be a little distraction for us. So we're just going to stay focused on what we need to do, stay healthy, and get ready for the next game.
So in the post game, everybody kept bringing up Kibo, and we used our contextual clues. Okay, that's Keanu Hill. So where does the nickname Kibo come from?
Just when I was a little kid, man, just growing up playing sports, everybody would be like, hey, what's his name? What's his name? My dad would tell him Keanu, and they'd be like, oh, like Keanu Reeves and stuff like that. And then a couple minutes later, they'd be like, let's go Keanu or Kanu or anything like that. So he would just tell them just to call me Kibo just to keep it short, man.
Which do you prefer? Do you like your actual name, Keanu, or do you like it when your teammates call you Kibo?
I like Keanu, but I like it when people call me Kibo, though.
Okay. For the record, we have been calling you Keanu for a number of years, okay? So, but we might throw in a little bit to mix it up. Keanu Hill, or Kibo, is with us on BYU Sports Nation, BYU receiver. You watched a bunch of your teammates seemingly take that final walk. Gunnar Romney's included in that. Neil Pau said he was going to be playing potentially his final game, potentially be honored. And then there's obviously Samson Nakua. So where do you see your opportunity as a receiver developing in the years moving forward?
Just to sharpen my skills, as I always do, keep my head down and just keep pushing forward, man. I really look up to those guys, Neil, Gunnar, and Samson. They kind of bring that leadership and energy, especially Samson, with his very hyper self, man. Just love to have that in our room, man. It will be missed, but just going to keep my head down and keep moving forward and see how I can sharpen my skills.
What do the Nakuas do for the wide receiver room?
Oh, a lot. They bring a lot of energy, a lot of confidence in that room, man. Really. And it brings a lot of leadership, man. Very vocal, happy, all that stuff. They always try to keep us in our best selves, always. So really, really enjoy them having them here.
For you, what's the best part of having a bye week, especially in a year that has just been a grind of a schedule?
Just to get my body back right, had a big game last Saturday, kind of bump some bruises around. So just trying to get my body back right, stay healthy as possible as I can.
As you look ahead to Georgia Southern and then USC with an opportunity for 10 wins in the regular season, where does BYU collectively as a team need to be better so that you can close out with a double-figure win column in the regular season?
Just really focus on ourselves, if anything, because if we focus on ourselves, I know that us as a whole can come together as a team to get a W out. So just working, focusing on ourselves and focusing on what we need to do to bring a W home.
Okay, and we'll finish with this. What needs to happen for Keanu Hill to get the ball more from Jaron Hall?
That's not really my decision. It's really Jaron Hall's decision. If he goes to his reads and he sees I have the best matchup, then he'll give me the ball for sure. But, we have a lot of weapons out there, man. So we got me, Samson, Gunnar, Neil, and Puka and all them. So, it's going to be tough. But I'm just going to, every time I get in, just make the best of what I got.
Are you always open, Keanu?
Always.
I love that about wide receivers. Hey, it's great to talk with you. Congratulations on a big performance, the 2 touchdowns against Idaho State. enjoy your rest. Let's give you some BYU Sports Nation karma so you can heal up, and we'll look forward to seeing you back on the field against Georgia Southern.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me.
Keanu Hill, BYU Sports Nation All Access, one-on-one with the wide receiver. 2 touchdowns last Saturday. And, Jerem, you and I were just talking a moment ago. We like his game.
No, we were listening intently. What are you talking about?
Well, we've heard the interview. We've seen it. We're good. Yes. But we like his game. And his potential, if Neil Poe decides it's time to move on, like to get in there and replace him.
Yeah, sometimes it takes a sec for a guy to get ready. You know, a year, 2, or whatever. And then as a junior, you're like, all right, now it's time to perform. Keanu's doing that in this last half of the season, which is great. His uncle's Roy Williams, who played for the Cowboys, the receiver, I believe, not the defensive back. So he's got the genes, which is pretty cool. Okay, coming up, our first double down picks of the season. What is that? We'll explain.
And it's Top 5 Tuesday, and we're looking at the top 5 wins of the season for BYU football. How would you rank them? We'll give you our list next. This is BYU Sports Nation.
I wonder what's one.
This portion of BYU Sports Nation is presented by Delta Airlines. Keep climbing.
This is where we dominate. Our playground, place of business. This is our promised land, where we seek to find ourselves. And we're here to make sure the spaces our best prove themselves on appear how they should. Intermountain Healthcare, official medical provider for BYU Athletics.
I don't know why terrible things happen to us sometimes, but I have to believe that something good is gonna come out of this.
Family comes in a lot of shapes and sizes. With 4 corgis, there's never a dull moment in our home.
Boots was born with 2 very special front paws. Just because he was born different doesn't mean he doesn't deserve a chance. For him to be able to run freely would be life-changing.
If I put this wheel in the front of him, then he'll have a lot more stability and balance.
Derek's help in this journey, it's truly a dream come true.
This portion of BYU Sports Nation is presented by Mountain America, the official credit union of BYU Athletics.
On the latest BYU Sports Nation right now, Kiki Solano taking you to LaVell Edwards Stadium one last time this season. Check it out on the BYUSN Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook account.
Show's always available on demand via the BYU TV and BYU radio apps. Let's go Top 5 Tuesday, presented by Delta Airlines. Keep climbing. We're looking at the top 5 wins of the BYU football season to this point. How would you rank them? We're about to tell you how we rank them. Start us off, Jerem.
Number 5, Utah State.
Wow.
BYU is ranked 4-0, ranked number 13, trying to get to 5-0 back-to-back seasons. Malik Moore, second best play of the season, in my opinion, had an interception in the first half. Cougars were up 24-13 at halftime thanks to 2 rushing touchdowns from Tyler Algier. Here it is. Oh, left-handed. Are you serious? Second best play of the year by far. First is obvious, okay? Tyler Algier, tomahawk chop. Tyler Algier, a couple touchdowns there. Isaac Rex, touchdown from Baylor Romney, who gets knocked out of the game at halftime. So Jacob Conover comes in, does a first-team All-American job of handing off to Tyler Algier, who had 218 yards and 3 touchdowns. Cougars won 34-20, kept the old wagon wheel.
It's a credit to Utah State that they're on this list, because beating Arizona in Vegas, I would have thought, that'd probably be a top 5 win. Nope.
No.
They're not good. Utah State's 7-2. Number 4, Washington State. BYU in Pullman, one of their Power 5 wins, and this one in true road format. 4th win over a Pac-12 team in the 4th try this season. Tyler Algier, 191 yards on 32 carries, 2 touchdowns. Malik Moore had another interception. He probably got an NIL deal after this game. BYU moved to 6-2 after they beat the Cougars on the Palouse.
Number 3, Arizona State. This was BYU's first home game as a ranked team against another ranked team since 2009 at home. Cougars forced 3 turnovers, fumble on the opening kickoff, picks from Max Tooley, Malik Moore as well. Set up 3 first-half touchdowns. Then late in the third quarter, Jaron Hall was picked off. But Tyler Algier made the play of the year by chasing the interceptor, punching the ball out, and Hall recovered. This is an incredible play. Baylor Romney came in for an injured Jaron Hall, threw a touchdown to seal the win, 27-17. I'm stalling because I want to see the tomahawk chop one more time, and it's too far down in the highlights. Here it is. Here it is. We'll see it. It's just so good. Okay, it's just so good. What's this cat's name again? Chase Robertson? Tyler Algier?
Good luck.
No, Merlin Robertson.
No!
Sorry. No wizardry here!
Number 2, BYU, number 25 team in the country at the time they welcomed Bronco Mendenhall in Virginia into the Valid Word Stadium. 66-49. The shootout, we wondered if BYU could win if they got into it. Yeah, they can win it, and they did. Also, Tyler Algier ran for 266 yards and tied a BYU record of 5 rushing touchdowns. Jaron Hall was quietly amazing. 66 points is the most BYU's ever scored against a Power 5 opponent, which is why it's number 2 on the list. Which means there's only one other game that could top Virginia, Jeremy.
To host Utah, September 11th. BYU ended the 9-game losing streak and the 12-year drought. Oh, Dave McCann's flyover happened. BYU beat Utah 26-17. Cougars were unranked. Utah was number 21. 2 early forced turnovers. Got the lead. Jaron Hall threw touchdown passes to 3 different players in this one. Samson Nakua, one of them. He was great. Then it seemed like almost everybody in Utah County stormed the field after that. It was a glorious night where BYU ended the streak. And really we thought, okay, BYU's good. And then they continued to climb from there.
All right, it's our first double down segment of the BYU basketball season now before we close out this show, where both Jerem and I give you 2 predictions as to what we think will happen in tonight's game against Cleveland State. 1 point is awarded for each correct answer, and a bonus point is awarded if you get both correct for a possibility of 3 points.
Okay.
All right? We're doubling down. Jerem, what are your 2 double down predictions?
1, Tijon Lucas will put up a combined plus 22 in points, rebounds, assists.
Okay.
Just 22, not plus 22. Just 22, okay? He averaged 25 last year. So first game here, he'll do that. 2, Caleb Lohner and Gideon George will combine for 13-plus rebounds. They averaged about 11 last year. So
okay. I like those. Number 1 for me, BYU will lead by 10-plus at halftime tonight. They're a 14.5-point favorite in the game overall. So I think they get out to a quick start tonight. 10-plus lead at halftime. At number 2, after shooting 6 for 19 from the free throw line against Colorado Christian, I think BYU will figure it out and shoot 67%.
Okay.
So just make 2 out of every 3.
Yeah.
Can we do that from the free throw line? Our question of the day, which team will end the season ranked higher, BYU basketball or BYU football? Our elite voice of the day, presented by Sundance Mountain Resort at 86WI Coug, says football. If question would have been asked in August, answer would have been basketball.
Oh, yeah.
But we're 10 of 13 games into the BYU football season with a good chance of football season ending 11-2 and ranked as high as top 10. Basketball would have to do something done just one time in history, the Elite 8.
Yeah, pretty crazy.
Today's Rise and Shoutouts presented by Mountain America, the official credit union of BYU Athletics.
Gideon George for the shoe drive coming up Friday. Women's soccer 4 seed, women's volleyball 5. And our guy Noah Reeb is going on Ellen today.
Go, Noah!
What's up, Noah? Can't wait to watch it.
I've seen him at a bunch of BYU events. He's an elite fan. All right, our thanks to today's guests, of course, Isaiah Cafusi and Keanu Hill.
Sorry to Dennis, no time.
For Jerem, I am Spencer. Let's shout out to Rich Cafusi. We'll see you for BYU basketball at 6 Eastern. Go Cougs!